He always thought of the sea as La Mar, which is what people call her in Spanish when they love her. Sometimes those who love her say bad things of her, but they are always said as though she were a woman. Some of the younger fishermen spoke of her as El Mar, which is masculine. They spoke of her as a contestant or a place or even an enemy. But the old man always thought of her as feminine and as something that gave or withheld great favors. And if she did wild or wicked things, it was because she could not help them. The moon affects her as it does a woman, he thought. Ernest Hemingway, The Old Man and the Sea. Not too long ago, I had the opportunity to write about a work of art which has made a lasting impression on me, and that was the game Journey. When I began the review, I said, "Sometimes art transcends its own medium." I hold that the same is true of today's game in question, one which already shares a lot in common with Journey, namely Abzû. It's been said that Abzû is Journey's spiritual successor. At this point, I'll hold off on too many more comparisons between these two games. Abzû may have been informed largely by its predecessor, but that doesn't make it a poor game, not by a long shot. Abzû was not developed by that game company, but by Giant Squid Studios, a new group with an appropriate name founded by an art director from that game company. It is difficult to properly classify Abzû. Is it a simulator? Is it an adventure game? I think questions like that speak to its nature as an art piece leaning toward the symbolic, the abstract, rather than merely a video game which fits neatly into a genre. And yet Abzû somehow remains marketable. It attracted attention upon its release. Some of that, of course, was a current generated by the popularity of similar games before it, but this was a game many were excited to play. I was very excited to play it. It was one which generated a lot of discussion as well. It continues to do so plainly because of the mysterious and mystifying story it tells. There's something to be said for the kind of striking impact such a small and peaceful game can have upon the industry. In the midst of a sea of games vying for the attention of the media and gamers, Abzû comes like a soft breeze, a scent of fresh air. Perhaps we need more games like this. Perhaps beneath the hunger for gratuitous violence, frenetic multiplayer, new tech, what a lot of us really want is something which sets all of that aside. There are no sniper scopes in Abzû, no monsters or zombies, no game overs, no high scores to earn, no time limits, no online multiplayer, no DLC, thank goodness, no hopelessness, no dialogue, no gritty realism, no need for headsets and microphones, no fetch quests. In the place of those things isn't nothing. There is emotion. Abzû is moving. I never thought I would feel a lump in my throat for a fish. Beyond its capacity for evoking an emotional response, Abzû offers truly unique beauty and gameplay that is built on interaction and not primarily destruction. That alone sets it among an isolated group in gaming. It also contains some of the most impressive environments I've seen out of decades of gaming. Does the world really crave something so gentle, so benign, so emotional over all of the hype and noise of modern game marketing and merchandising? Only you can personally answer that question for yourself, but it would seem that many of us do. I believe that beneath the pining for the next sequel or the next wave of downloadable content lies a yearning to experience life. Maybe not every gamer would openly admit that, but I'm convinced that that is one big reason why games like Abzû succeed. They reach the humanity in the player. Abzû causes us to feel emotions not generally engaged, and it does so in a powerful way. Abzû is entirely built on the premise of the beauty of the natural world, its solidarity, its loneliness, its unparalleled majesty, its scope and scale. I felt the same way when I played Flower, another game by that game company, and sorry to bring it up for the sake of returning back to comparisons, but here's the thing. In our technologically advanced societies of computers and computer games, when was the last time we went beyond the urbana, the pavement, the asphalt, the sidewalks, and took a walk through a forest? Not to get exercise, not as a means to an end in other words, but just to be there among the trees. Have you gone to the beach, not to get a tan, not to party or hang out, not to see some event, but simply to be there, to experience the ocean and take in its awe-inspiring size? Abzû serves as a kind of memorial that there is an entire world beyond the screen that you're experiencing this on, beyond the screen that you've played Abzû on. It reminds us that the world is wonderful, and you've got to go out to see it. Maybe get away from other humans at this point in history, and just take in a meadow or a shoreline, or a glade or a mountain in a few hours, alone. In this sense, the unnaturally stylized natural beauty in Abzû is merely a detour sign, one which serenely guides us to think of doing things as simple and enjoyable as swimming. I haven't done that for years. David Attenborough once said, "It seems to me that the natural world is the greatest source of excitement, the greatest source of visual beauty, the greatest source of intellectual interest. It is the greatest source of so much in life that makes life worth living." Abzû can't be enough to fulfill anyone. It's all too finite. In that vein, it's a self-contradiction. It points to a real world beyond its own digital one, carefully crafted by its developers. It is a world made by humans, and it is beautiful, but it's a mere shadow of the real world made by inhuman hands. Deep down, you're alive. Some of us may have forgotten. But that life yearns to experience, your soul longs to live, and gaming is just a small, tiny shred of everything you can experience in life. That's profound, and that's Abzû. The name, which will be unfamiliar to almost everyone unless you've got a degree in ancient linguistics, is a combination of two Sumerian words, Ab, which means water, and Zu, which means deep. The official website for Abzû defines the words as ocean and to know, equating to an ocean of wisdom. The difference in meaning was best explained to my mind when I read that the Abzû of ancient Sumerian texts was theoretically both a place and a state of being and mind. It is both deep water and ocean of wisdom. Wisdom can be defined as the best, most prudent application of knowledge. Wisdom is making good use of facts, good use of knowledge. So what is Abzû about, and what wisdom is it trying to convey to us? In Abzû, players take control of the diver. The diver has no name, though the developers have revealed the diver is female. She suddenly appears to awaken or revive at the surface of a vast ocean. There is no dry land in sight. All that awaits is below, though there is no direction, no guide for your explorations. Where are you even headed? There are lush underwater jungles of waving seaweed, stretches of brilliant sandbars, rocks encrusted with emerald algae, vivid corals and crustaceans, brightly arrayed schools of fish of all kinds. It isn't all placid waters, however, as the reefs and kelp give way to a murky, hellish abyss. Still, there is one constant: the sea is teeming with life. We're meant to see it this way because Abzû is about bringing life into this world of water. Helpful little drones can be exhumed from the sand, which aid the diver on her explorations. Along the way, the diver encounters water beneath the water, a sub-layer of liquid, if you will. There are ancient towers which allow her to submerge into this special water. What this glowing substance is unknown, or is it? Though it is depicted in murals and mosaics on the gilded walls of Atlantean ruins. There is also a shark, another character, a great white shark. We might have expected a game that draws upon the player's emotions to play upon one of the world's most powerful emotions we can experience, fear. Since ancient times, well before Spielberg's Bruce, human beings have feared sharks. The ancient seafaring Hawaiians had a fearsome, ravenous shark god in their pantheon, who was a false protector of one fueled by vengeance, before betraying him. The shark god ate all of the people of the man consumed by revenge and turned the ocean red with their blood after flooding their land and washing them into the sea. Good luck having a good night's sleep after that one. I won't say that Abzû is terrifying. Most of it is quite tranquil, some of it is not. It'll play on a lot of our innate galeophobia and thalassophobia, though, if that's you. The ocean is beautiful, but it's also quite terrifying. As a child, I was always taught to respect it. As a child, I thought it was beautiful, but I also feared it. There's a lot tying Abzû's elements together, though the meaning of the connections are difficult to see. Abzû does not do a great job of explaining itself. The relationship between the drones, the water beneath the water, the diver, and the shark is full of mystery, but I think there are a few suitable lenses of interpretation given the game's use of ancient religious concepts. Abzû is an experience structured around the wonder of discovery. There's a lot of mystery to uncover. Let's pause to talk about visuals for a moment. This is easily one of the most visually beautiful games I've ever played. There are so many things which could have gone wrong, which could have thrown off the illusion of being underwater. But consider the many details in Abzû which work perfectly. The sense of weightlessness and simultaneous tangibility of the animals and the diver. There is a constant ebb and flow in the water as currents and tide collide, making everything wave and bob gently. The surface of the ocean is unlike any water effect I've seen before in a video game, with the undulating, light-fragmenting appearance that looks so much like the real thing. I spent a lot of time diving as a youngster, so I know what I'm talking about. Dappled sunlight playing on the ocean floor, clouds of sand kicked up by your flippers, specks of tiny plankton shifting aimlessly while suspended in the water. The portrayal of depth in the ocean sea. It's all breathtaking. Some of the most impressive video game graphics I've ever seen belong to Abzû's shoal of giant trevally. I've never seen anything like it in gaming, not even remotely. This is not one object that looks like many little objects. It is dozens and dozens and dozens of little objects which change their direction to avoid the diver and predators, a constant shifting cloud of individual fish. Mind-blowing. One interesting feature in Abzû is where the diver can swim up to a submerged statue and sit cross-legged on top of it. This then switches the camera over to any of the varied marine life swimming around. The game even tells you the names of each animal. Seeing whales, marlin, giant squid, manta rays, jellyfish, anglerfish, and sharks are all wonderful, but you can even ride most of the larger animals. It's a screenshotter's paradise. I also got to spot the Hawaii state fish, the Humu Humu Nuku Nuku Apua'a. Grammy Award nominee Austin Wintory, who scored Flow, Flower, and Journey, returns triumphantly to gaming composition with an orchestral soundtrack as powerful as a tsunami and as complex as the spiral shell of a nautilus. This is his most complicated and broadest work yet, and it makes even the soundtrack from Journey sound minimal by comparison. As the oceans of Abzû are overflowing with life, so is Wintory's score overflowing with complexity, at times even turning dissonant. Wintory said, Abzû is about the dream of scuba diving more than the realities of scuba diving. As such, the score is ambient and in characteristic Wintory style. Each track melds and flows into the next as the game progresses from area to area, emotion to emotion, evoking the sense of the ocean. Swelling strings and the antiphonies of choirs overlay so much against each other that at times there is no harmony or even a melody to be picked out. Many of the tracks are so moving and magnificent, they take on a almost spiritual quality befitting much of Abzû's content. One of the last areas in the game takes a resplendent leap and the music roars into a glorious crescendo of voices. It hardly matters that you can't understand their language, Latin, is it? Since the impact of the music is in the sensation of the monumental and the divine, touching the hand of Michelangelo's God, rather than in the details of the lyrics. Wintory creates through Abzû such an indescribably lively listening experience. It is difficult to pin down exactly what it is in the music which reached out to grasp your heart. You won't be able to tell whether the music in the game was built around the visuals, or if the visuals were formed by the music. In some ways, music in Abzû even seems experimental. At times, it sways between music and noise, not clamor or something unpleasant like that, but something more along the lines of Ligeti's Lux Aeterna, an ancient numinous sound. It is music where sensation is more important than melody. Seriously, Google Lux Aeterna and make that comparison. Gameplay. Now, Abzû is entirely underwater, and water levels, most people hate them. I particularly don't, I kind of like water levels, but generally people hate water levels because water levels take all of the gameplay you've learned in the game and they throw those things in the garbage. Water levels, pretentious water levels, have their own sense of physics and sluggishness, which stick a wrench in the whole game. Well, guess what? Abzû is one gigantic water level. However, these are definitely the most enjoyable controls for any underwater video game environment. They are simplified to perfection. They're smooth and fluid and elegant. The diver can swim at various different speeds, and the player can utilize different patterns of swimming, even triggering a somewhat tricky boost that thrusts the diver through the water at tremendous but limited pace. While exploring under the sea, the diver will come across hidden pools of light. Interacting with these pools will trigger the appearance of new marine life, animals which seem to materialize out of raw energy, who then swim off to become predators or prey. Yeah, you can literally watch a whole ecosystem happening around you, with fish chasing each other and eating each other. Swimming alongside humpback whales and extinct animals is a delight. There are also spiral shells which can be picked up. This is the closest thing to an inventory item in Abzû. If you collect all 19 shells, you unlock a special secret. However, these discoveries are few, if not entirely far between. There are only a few areas in Abzû, and the game is short. The biggest complaint that has reached my ears about Abzû concerns just how short it really is. Each of the areas, which I noticed follow a spring, summer, autumn, winter progression, ends with unlocking a ruined tower and accessing the water beneath the water to revive life. The areas themselves are not very expansive, though they have the illusion of being huge. That, coupled with the game being linear, there isn't in actuality too much to explore. Less is more, as they sometimes say. In this case, I've finished Abzû almost a dozen times now, and its controls and gameplay are so relaxing and enjoyable and downright gorgeous that I just want to play it without accomplishing anything, without beating it. I'd call that a design success. Now, to talk about the narrative of the game, I'm going to put up a spoiler warning. If you want to avoid spoilers, keep skipping ahead until the word spoiler disappears from the screen. After progressing to the first tower in the game, you get an idea of the general linear structure of Abzû. The diver proceeds through the summit of the tower down into a hidden realm, the water beneath the water. It's an ethereal world full of ghosts. At least I presume that's what all of the translucent architecture represents. There, the diver places a sphere inside of a globule, triggering a resurgence of natural life in the area outside of the tower as the veil in which the tower sits fills up with water underwater like a shimmering pool. With the tower secured and revitalized, the diver proceeds on to the machine, a gigantic triangular structure dominating the ocean floor. Remember, there's no dialogue in Abzû to explain things, but the machine is clearly some kind of self-replicating device. Inside of it, we see that it mass produces drones, the same ones that you've already unearthed, and floating mines which are the same triangular shape. In a central room, a lit-up display shows that the drones, the mines, and the diver herself all share the same central power source, a glowing blue sphere, which is the same sphere that the diver earlier deposited into the towers to revive the local flora and fauna. The machine appears to be self-aware, with a single eye that tracks everything moving by. The great white shark leads the driver to its core and attempts to destroy it. Unfortunately, the resulting explosion kills the shark and shreds the skin from the diver, revealing her to be an automaton. This is a surprisingly tragic moment with the death of the shark. I share my wife's sentiments when she said, "I never thought I'd feel so sad to see a shark die." That's a true testament to Abzû's reach. The diver leaves behind the corpse of the shark, who it turns out had been an ally all this time, and passes into a secret world of cobalt and gold ruins. It's a lost world where primeval life forms still exist. This was a fun opportunity for me to show off all the stuff I thought I forgot I learned from zoo books. I said, "Look, an ichthyosaur." Through the ancient ruins, the diver reaches the center of the water underwater and passes on into this strange spirit realm, reviving the spirit of the dead great white. Together they swim even deeper into some kind of afterlife scene of glory. They destroy the remaining machines and at last confront the central machine again, effectively shutting it down. The final image in the game is of the shark now alive again, and the diver swimming idly and playfully among the other sea life, in a new ecosystem growing from the shell of the machine. The narrative is deceptively simple. Sure, we were lied to about the nature of the Great White, but progressing area by area to confront the epitome of industrialized evil, and then restore the natural world is something we've seen plenty of times before. The balance of nature and the opposition of human technology against nature is nothing new to storytelling. Fern Gully to Avatar to Jurassic Park. Didn't Dr. Malcolm say rape of the natural world? Life finds a way. But beneath this environmental message warning against the threat of exponentially advancing technology is a thematic web which is more open to interpretation. I'll say right off the bat that I don't think Abzû intends to answer every question made about it. I don't believe there is an explanation for the diver's identity, or what she was doing the whole time the machine she seems to have introduced to this world ran amok. Any framework at all is seen in the murals of the ruins. This is what I can piece together. The ancient people, Atlanteans perhaps, discovered an energy source beneath the sea, represented by a blue sphere shining like the sun. They harvested this energy and carried it in jars, but they always returned some of the energy back to the sea in a picture of sustainability of natural resources. They also associated the blue energy with the great white shark, which is a recurring image throughout the murals. Sometimes the shark is depicted as bright in color, and sometimes as dark in color, which might differentiate between the spirit shark at the end of the game and the living, breathing one. At this point in time, I believe the shark is some kind of primal god, a guardian of the undersea energy, reincarnating in every generation, which would explain its reappearance throughout the murals in different forms. At some point in the Atlanteans' history, the diver appeared with the machine. Both the diver and the machine were capable of harvesting the blue energy like never before. The ancients are depicted as prostrating themselves before this technological marvel. Where did the diver and the machine come from, though? The diver is depicted as separate from the people, an individual. Perhaps the diver too is some kind of deity, a visitor from another world. The revelation that she is a robot confirms she is unlike the ancients, who we have no reason to believe were robots as well. There is the barest hint at the possibility of her origins. At the surface, at the start of the game, you can tilt the camera up and sometimes catch a glimpse in the distant sky of a shattered triangular shape, somewhat like the shape of the machine, though it appears to be something like a landmass or a spaceship. Was this another machine, but in the sky? Was this a ship? Are we talking aliens, or is it a moon? I don't know. But perhaps the diver came from the sky, as most pagan deities did. In the murals, the machine the diver brought eventually harvested too much of the blue energy, which devastated the life forms growing in the ocean. What happened to the diver while this went on? Maybe she left. Maybe she simply didn't care. Maybe she deactivated if there wasn't enough blue energy left to power her. At the beginning of the game, the water underwater shines and seems to call the diver to wake. The ancients fled their cities and carried off their treasures. I thought of the stone relief on the Arch of Titus, depicting the treasures of Jerusalem being carried away, the end of an era. This explains the current state of things in Abzû. The cities are abandoned, now ruins. The life forms which appear from the blue energy are those which perished from the machine's unchecked efficiency. Interestingly, it is the diver who must restore them to life. She is the one who brought the machine, it seems. It is her responsibility. What an allegory for the human race. Now to some alternative interpretations. One of the most convincing that I've read was a theory which postulates that the entire game is about the journey of a woman trying to get pregnant, where the diver represents the woman, of course, the shark represents the male, and the triangular machine represents the uterus. Both the shark and the diver must travel to the triangle together to make the delivery and create life and so on. It's interesting, but I don't think you could say the game is about getting pregnant. That's merely an interpretation. I believe the best interpretation is one which the game makes itself through its title. Abzû, as we've seen, means ocean of wisdom, but it also refers to the ancient belief of a primeval sea in Mesopotamian religion. Additionally, Abzû is the name of a deity in the Enuma Elish Babylonian creation myth. In the myth, Abzû or Apsu is a male deity of subterranean fresh water in love with Tiamat, female deity of salt water. Abzû is said to have existed before the heavens or the earth, along with Tiamat, and from them sprung life through the mixing of their waters. Abzû and Tiamat bear the lesser gods, who eventually rise up and usurp Abzû. Tiamat is also killed, and the heavens and the earth are formed from her remains. Lots of similarities to the Grecian myths. I think the developers cleverly drew from this myth for their game. The title Abzû refers both to the underwater blue energy and to the masculine shark partner figure who incarnates it. If the diver has a name at all, it must be Tiamat, the deity of the primal saltwater who loved Abzû. In the game, they both fall, and only the diver, Tiamat, survives to go on to destroy her own machine, her descendants, though the game ends more happily for the male and female figures than it does in the Babylonian story. The audio tracks, their waters were mingled together, and then were created the gods in the midst of heaven, both seem to tie into the Sumerian roots. Water being compared to life and the origin of life is not unique to Abzû, but utilizing the Sumerian beliefs is. Abzû is the shark and the blue energy, the life force of the planet, if you will, while the diver is the creation goddess Tiamat, the one who brings this life forth through cooperation with the shark. And that's my interpretation. One last interesting thing to note is Abzû was also a term used for containers of holy water in Babylonian temples, much like the ancient people in the murals carrying the blue energy in their jars. Abzû is capable of teaching you how to play with just a few images of a controller appearing on the screen. It takes less than a minute, and there's nothing to master since there's so little demanded of you in the game. To prove my point about the game's inherent accessibility, I handed the controller over to my stepdad one night when he visited and just said, "Here, have fun," and he did. He actually used to do a lot of diving and fishing himself. He got into exploring for a little bit and managed to get around after getting his bearings. We're talking about a guy whose last video game was likely something like Pong. Emulating Journey as closely as it does is perhaps Abzû's biggest flaw as far as uniqueness is concerned. Playing through it, there were many times when I felt it was exactly the same, just in a different setting, Journey underwater. Though if it had to mirror any game, Journey is an excellent choice. Consider this: emphasis on minimalism, waking up in the middle of nowhere without explanation, exploring a ruined civilization, fighting off rogue tech, cultivating and freeing life forms, progressing linearly, examining murals and mosaics, experiencing spiritual reveries and trances are all very much like Journey. Spiritual successor indeed. I won't complain though, since I enjoyed the heck out of both works of art. Still, Abzû's inherent familiarity causes me to feel less of what I did with its predecessor. It's not as impactful. The inclusion of spiritual and religious concepts from the ancient times in Abzû does set it apart from many other games, and considering the vast majority of games out there, Abzû is very unique in its pointed use of these myths. I just don't think it will be as enduring as Journey. Abzû is everything I've ever wanted in a diving game, except for maybe including spearfishing, though that'd clearly be antithetical to the game's direction. I spent a lot of time in and around the ocean growing up, and it's always been a source of fear and awe for me. I've had dreams of swimming with tropical fish, and nightmares of being lost in the water after dark with unknown giants beneath me. Abzû captures the wonder of nature. I can fully appreciate that Abzû is not for everyone. It may be too tranquil, too serene for some, and come to be interpreted as boring. If that's you, I'm reminded of an anecdote about the late visionary director Stanley Kubrick, who filled almost half an hour of his film 2001: A Space Odyssey with images of satellites and space stations turning slowly through space, accompanied to the music of the Blue Danube. When asked why he would spend so much time on shots of space stations, he simply said, "Because they're beautiful." That concludes this audio review. You can read more at thewellreadmage.com, and you can support our work to inspire a future for games writing and a better gaming community via Patreon. And please be sure to subscribe. Thanks for listening. I'm the Well-Read Mage.